Welcome to the Clean Comedy Podcast, featuring JamesDCreviston and LukeLacoy. Yeah, we're about to get clean up in here, so clean your mouth out with a bar of soap and get ready for the Clean Comedy Podcast. Hi, I'm LukeLacoy, and welcome to the Clean Comedy Podcast. Yay, you're doing a great job.
That's a whole different podcast, dude.
I listen to it, and it's I'm always motivated when I listen to David speak on his podcast. So David, you're doing a great job. We're trying to do a great job too. So we have JamesDCreviston here with us.
Hello, everybody. Yep.
And today we're talking about writing the first draft. And it doesn't have to just be about writing. It can be getting the first draft done on any project that you're working on.
Yeah. And that's the big thing is right now, right? Everybody's kind of shut down, locked in, whatever. I mean, I know they just were talking about lifting restrictions in August, at the end of August sometime, beginning of September. But still, people for the most part are locked down. I spend probably 6 hours a day locked away writing stuff. I just finished my first draft for a horror comedy movie and turned that in last week. I just got hired to write a TV pilot for a production company. I can't say where or who, but if I said their name, everyone would know exactly who they are. And it's just some big traction. And then I have a secret podcast that I help produce and write. My name is not on it anywhere. It's an underground secret thing that I do on the side. But all of those projects take time and effort. There's no such thing as it's never done the first time. I wish I could write it and then it's done. I wish I could do that, but that's not how it works. I wish like I could just go, hey, I wrote this draft. Here you go, world, enjoy. But that's not how it is, right? I mean, it works the same thing with jokes, right?
Yeah, and to me, I think like honestly, the first draft is the hardest thing to get out first. And like because you know, whether it be a small project, big project, or a set, like I just don't want to start it.
Wait, okay, so what stops you from starting a project then? What's the thing holding you back?
I don't want to do it.
But
I don't think it's going to be funny.
So fear.
Probably.
And that's most people, right? They call that the imposter syndrome, where you don't think you can do it. Now, keep in mind, I've written a ton of stuff, right? I have people. We talked with David, right? We had that episode. If you guys haven't watched the 5 episode where I kind of go behind the scenes of what I do, I have people come to me all the time, and I still have imposter syndrome. Like on a daily basis, I literally sit down and go, I don't know how I'm going to do this. This is the one it's going to end everything for me. I'm never going to be able to write again. No one's going to want to buy anything from me. Like all that stuff runs through my head every single day. The big thing is I just have to sit down and start writing. They get out, or especially for screenplays, they call it the vomit draft, right? The draft where you just get it all on the page, and then you go back and read through it, and you're like, oh, why did I write that? That is terrible. Like I wrote this horror comedy, and it was great, you know, but I went back through and read it, and I was like, oh, that line's terrible. Who would say that? And it came after such a good scene. Like there was all this great action and all this other stuff. And there's that one line of dialogue where you're like, ugh, who wrote this? You know, like, man. But it's also the same thing with jokes, right? If you're a comedian, you write a joke, you're like, man, that's funny. You take it to the stage and it bombs. And you go, whoa, I thought that was funny. And then you have to dissect it and figure out why. Why is it not funny? What did I do wrong? Is my setup too long? Is my punchline too long? Is my setup too wordy and it doesn't make sense? So you have to like, people are having to think about my setup before they laugh, right? If people have to think about the setup, like, wait, okay, he's talking about this and this thing. Okay. And then what do I know about the rainforest? And then, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. And then you're already to the punchline and they're still thinking about whatever you started with, talking about the rainforest or whatever your joke is about. Next thing you know, you don't get the laugh. And you're like, oh man, that joke's funny. But yeah, it took too long for them to get there, or you have to give them too much information to get them invested in it, or whatever it is. That's not how it works. Mm-hmm. Same thing with your songs, right? How many times do you have to write one of your songs?
Yeah, it's a lot. Because usually I have an idea, and then I maybe have like an idea of the chorus or the hook, and then I keep working on that like repeatedly until there can't possibly be any other word that would work in it. And so it's multiple rewrites, and then they'll probably even change still. So
Yeah,
that's
when
the
you
nice
take it on
thing.
stage to see how it works, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked to comedians too. Like, I don't. Some of them, they don't even write their jokes out. They take their idea to the stage and test it out, and essentially that's them doing the first draft, but a live version of it, which is kind of interesting.
I could never do that. Literally, like I practice my sets so much, even for an open mic before I ever do it. I practice it so much to get it ready that by the time it's on stage, I've probably done it 20 times, 10 to 20 times, just I have my own mic, I have my own setup, I have all my stuff. I do it over and over again. I record it. I listen to it. Ooh, that word makes it take longer. Ooh, that word trips me up. Ooh, that way of saying it makes it too long, or oh, there's not enough setup, or oh, the punchline is not at the end, or whatever it is, and I have to work through it. So I almost, by the time even a open mic joke gets to the stage, it's not first draft, it's probably 10th draft, and so, and even that, it's still not perfect, right? There's no such thing. The perfect joke doesn't exist, right? There's comedians who record albums, and I've heard them say after they record an album, oh man, after I did that album, I had the perfect tagline for that, or ooh, I had the perfect another punchline that was better than that one, or whatever it is. They do that all the time, you know.
Yeah, and I usually find that like my most funny stuff comes from either the rewrite or doing a joke, like you said, over and over again until that tagline comes out, and then it's like, okay, now this feels almost like a finished product, like after the 10th time.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is the best taglines are usually the ones that you come up with on the spot, where you're in the moment, you're making people laugh, and you're in that creative mode. You're like, boom, you're punching all cylinders, you're getting that laughter, you get the feedback, and you're like, oh, you know what else is funny? And then you say it, people laugh, and you're like, ooh, that's great. I have that tag now. And that's why it's important to record your sets, ladies and gentlemen. Like, if you don't record them, and I can't even tell you how many times I've lost a great tag because I forgot to record my set because I got so excited. I got up there. I thought I was going to do my regular set, so I wasn't worried about it, and I lose a tagline. And it sucks because you can never get that back. You're never going to recreate that magic again. And like I said, I just put out a video for the Comedypreneur stuff where I talked about a comedy special, how a comedy special changed my stand-up. And I talk about that comedy is like magic, right? You don't see everything. It's sleight of hand. We're dazzling you over here with the setup, and we're hitting you over here with the magic, and boom, there you go, you laugh, right? That's what it is. And my favorite person for that, and the comedy special I talk about in there, is Chris Rock's Bigger and Blacker, because he has a cadence, he has a style, he works every part of a premise, he milks it for everything he possibly can before he moves on. So he might talk about one topic for 20 minutes, right? And then he goes to another topic and he talks about that for 20 minutes. So it may only be 3 or 4 topics, but he talks about it for 20 minutes and he comes at it from every possible angle he can come from. Like I said, it's like magic, You're watching him over here where you think like, oh, that's the end of it. And boom, there's the bunny. And you're like, all right, well, that's how it works,
Yeah, I was watching Augustino's, or not watching, but listening to Augustino's new album on YouTube, and
We're going to have him.
yeah, coming up, and yeah, like I have ideas just from from his set, and it was super funny. So I recommend listening to it. And, but yeah, I was laughing out loud to a lot of the stuff.
He's hilarious, man. And that's the thing is, and the title of the album is Bad Guy. And it's funny because he does a whole bit about being the bad guy or whatever, like I'm the bad guy, like his dad used to say it. Now he says it sometimes or whatever. And I think that's just maybe that's a guy thing, because I say that too sometimes. Like when everyone's in my house is upset because I said something, like, oh, I'm the bad guy, right? But so universal. And that's the thing is he comes at it from all the directions, right? The historical version of it, the common version of it, his version of it. And it's like all done in that same flow. And it's just so well done. I mean, he's a dynamite comedian. He's going to be huge. I know someday he's going to be super huge. So, and the good thing is, I mean, not the good thing, I guess, but the good and bad thing about this whole COVID stuff is, when this is all over, and the dust settles, we're going to see who really was dedicated to comedy and who was really just hiding behind it, right? Who was really using it for something else, to get girls. I don't know why you do that. Girls don't like comedians. To get money. Again, I don't know why you do it. Nobody gets money. To get famous. Again, not going to happen. So I don't know what they were hiding behind, but they were hiding behind comedy for ulterior motives, right? And so we'll see how it is. And comedy is about growing, right? If you listen to a comedian's first album, and then you listen to, the one 10 years later that they make, you go back and listen to George Carlin's early stuff and you listen to his later stuff, there's a huge growth, right? And that's writing and rewriting. That's learning and growing. That's adapting and changing. And that's what comedy is. That's what all of these creative pursuits are, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, always growing, and you got to start though. I mean, for me, that's the most important thing. Just starting whatever the project is.
The thing is, you have to look at it this way: you only fail if you don't do it, right? What's that quote? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? If you don't start, you already lost, right? So what do you have to really lose? If you start and you do it, that's still a win. You started. Now that's a win. So you count that as win number one. Oh, you finished the first 10 pages. That's a win. Oh, you finished if you're writing a screenplay, you finished 90 pages of a screenplay. That's a win. I think I read a stat one time that 1 in 500 people that start a screenplay finish one. 1 in 500. Wow. So
that's crazy.
If you finish it, you're already ahead of 499 other people, right? And then if you go back and you rewrite, I believe it's 1 in 250 people do that. So now you're ahead of another 249 people on top of the 499, right? And you just keep snowballing. And by the time you've done 4 or 5 drafts, you've worked through all of it, you're in the top 1% of people who have ever started a screenplay. And same thing with stand-up, right? How many people have you heard, oh yeah, I want to do stand-up, oh I always want to do stand-up, and they never do it, right? But you are the person that wrote a joke and you got on stage. You've already beat a massive amount of people to get there. Then after you did that and you got laughter, you beat a massive amount of people there, because if you go to open mic, it's not always funny people. Sometimes they say the most disgusting, misogynistic, racist, terrible things you've ever heard in your entire life. And somebody's saying that into a microphone in front of another group of people. And it's not like a rally for something terrible. It's a comedy club. That's even more frustrating, right? Then on top of that, after you've done the open mic, right, now you're already a smaller group of people. Then you get booked on a show. That's a smaller amount of people. Then once you get booked on a show, you get booked for more stage time on a show. That's even smaller amount of people. And eventually you become one of those comedians who gets paid to be on a show. And that's like the smallest amount of people. Now, there comes a point where the 1%, right, pops in. That's your Jerry Seinfelds, your Chris Rocks, Dave Chappelle's, all those people that are touring comedians that make a living doing stand-up and having specials and stuff. Those are the 1%, right? We're not there yet. We're in the middle group where we're getting paid and we're getting more time and we're getting spots, whatever. We don't have notoriety yet, but hey, who cares? At this point, it's working the craft. That's where the writing, rewriting, rehearsing, practicing, getting better at it comes in,
Yeah, and I wonder what the stats are for people they start comedy, they do some shows, but they have their first bomb incident. And then what's the stats of either never doing it again, going back, taking time off before doing it again? Oh, I find that interesting.
I think I heard most people quit within their first year or two. Most comedians never make it past 2 years. If you make it past 5 years, you've really either one, you like being punished and because you're not funny, or you are funny and you're getting laughs, so you know how to work it. And then if you haven't dropped out by then, the odds of you making it to 10 years, unless you're, really old or you die or something like that, is pretty significant at that point. And then after 10 years, if people haven't made it, they haven't got famous, they're not, working on the road, they're not making a living off comedy, usually they're not around after that. So somewhere in that 5 to 10 year range. And that 10-year range is the part where then people start really progressing. So if you give up right as you're on the cusp, that's the thing. Same thing with screenwriters. They say screenwriters, it takes about 10 years to get there, right? That or a ton of screenplays. Luckily, in my case, I have people that are willing to, it started off paying me to write jokes, a single joke, whatever, and then more jokes. And then from jokes to silly blog post or whatever, and then commercials, and then from commercials to short web series stuff, and then web series to TV pilots, from TV pilots to features. It snowballs. Once you have something going, you can snowball that process, and then you'll gain the skills faster. But if you're sitting around and doing nothing, you know, and I know you're not, Luke. I know you're a busy guy. You're doing a lot of stuff every day. So I'm not, you know, pushing you around or belittling Luke. I don't want any hate mail saying, hey, you're being mean to Luke about it. But, you know, if you have an idea, if you have stuff that you want to do it, right? There's no reason not to. There's nothing stopping you but you.
Yeah. The other day I had an idea for like a short sketch, and like I wanted to get it out like as soon as possible. So I just wrote like, it's a 5-page, you know, it's a 5-minute sketch idea. And I wrote the thing out just like as fast as I could just to get out of my head. Cause I know, okay, I can always go back now and, you know, really fine tune it and, you know, make it like super funny. But just like, yeah, I had to just get it out and then get it on something. And then I had peace of mind.
Yeah. The worst is when you have a joke right before you fall asleep. You're starting to fall asleep and you have this great joke idea and you're like, oh no, you got to wake up and put it in your phone or write it down or whatever and stuff. Those are the worst. Or you go, I've done this before. I'm like, oh, it's a great idea. I'll do it in the morning. And then I totally forget what it was. And I'm like, oh man, I'm so mad at myself. So now I don't do that. I've woken up in the middle of the night from a dead sleep to get my phone and write a joke in there that I came up with because in my dream or whatever, I had a funny bit or a line. Now, are they always as funny as I think they are at like 2:00 in the morning? No, they're not. Definitely not. But if I didn't write it down, how would I know that, right? Because it may even be a small amount of that is funny. The rest of it is fluff. But I got to mine it and I rewrite it and rework it to get to that diamond. And I think this is where books and people like Gene Perret and his books, or Scott Dickers and his books, or even Greg Dean and his stuff, all come in handy because they teach you about writing jokes. I always recommend Scott Dickers' book and Gene Perret's book. So if you want to do stand-up, Gene Perret. If you want to write any kind of stuff, let's blogs, satire, whatever, I would look up Scott Dickers' books, How to Write Funny. I mean, there's stuff. And then if you go to comedypreneur.com, we just put up 5 more books that I recommend comedians read. And there's, I think the other list is like 20 books or something like that comedians should read in. Honestly, the best way to build your creative muscle, to build that rewriting thing, is also reading, right? So do this. If you're watching stand-up, if you're watching a stand-up special, or you're watching a movie, a funny movie or whatever you're into, maybe you're not want to do funny stuff, but if you do, watch it with the subtitles on and read it. Now, if you're watching that stand-up special for the first time, don't do it that way, because then when they do the punchline, you won't laugh. I mean, you probably won't. But after you've watched it, go back and say, you know what, I'm going to watch it with the subtitles, and just watch and read what they say and do. Now, it's not always perfect, I'll give you that, but you have an idea. And same thing with a screenplay. If you like a movie, go and read the screenplay while you watch the movie the next time. Watch it once, say, oh, this is great. Get the screenplay, read it, and then while you're watching the movie, read and watch the screen, you know, go back and forth. I've learned so much because screenplays aren't always the same as what gets made on the screen, but you get an idea of what they were going for in the screenplay and how that changed or how that stayed the same in the film.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, to either like read like not having seen the movie, but you read a scene and you're like, that's interesting. How would they shoot that, to see like how it was actually executed, and vice versa. But yeah, that's super interesting to do.
Yeah, the movie I did that recently with, I did it with Lethal Weapon, because I have like one of the characters in the horror comedy satire movie that I wrote is kind of like a ripoff of Riggs from Lethal Weapon, which is Mel Gibson's character. And so I watched it. I want to see how he says things, how they do things, how Shane Black wrote that character, and how he made it come to life and be this, because, you know, semi-suicidal kind of nuts, but really good cop. And so I have a character similar to that in the story. And so it was important to me to watch it. So I read the screenplay while I watched it. And it was great, because I was like, oh, how's this going to translate to the screen? How's this scene going to translate? And I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, they did such a good job, you know? So when you do that, you're going to learn a lot. And when you take the time to write and then rewrite and rework your craft, that's when you're going to get better. That's when you're going to beat out the other 99% of the people doing the same thing you want to do. Kevin Hart's famous quote, I think I say it on this podcast literally all the time, right? Is everybody wants to be famous, but nobody wants to put in the work. And that's the truth. If you just put in the work, if you just get started, right, you're already ahead of most people, because most people in their life will walk around saying, I wish I was this. I wish I was that. I want to do this. I want to do that. Don't wish, don't want to, just do it, right? Just like Nike says, just do it. If you just do it, you're going to be ahead of most people because who walk around, shoulda, coulda, wouldas, right? I think my grandma used to say, stop saying shoulda, coulda, woulda, because it's a waste of your time. Just do it. Just go do whatever you're going to do.
Yeah. And if in my case, if a first draft is taking months, just get it done. Just get it done.
This is the sad part, is I only give myself, it's not really my constraint. It's more of Fiverr's constraint, but the max you can do is 30 days for a project. So I have to write a 90-page screenplay in 30 days. And keep in mind, I don't write on Sundays. So that's automatically usually 30 days, 4 of those are gone. So now it's down to 26 days. And sometimes I have other stuff going on a Saturday or another project or whatever. So I don't get to that. So then, that's 25 to 20 days. So my writing time is actually 18 to 20 days usually. Do I have full 30 days, and some days I'll write 10 pages, some days I'll write 2 pages, some days I'll write 5 pages, sometimes I'll write 7 pages. It just depends on the day, but I always try to do, even if it's 1 page or 1 rewrite or 1 thing, I try to do something every day on a project that I'm working on. And it's probably the reason why I'm so successful. I make a list of what I have to do that day, and I just go and knock out as much as I can. It's not always easy. And honestly, it takes a lot of work. But the next episode, or another episode of the podcast that we're going to talk about creativity hacks. And these are things that I do and that Luke does so we can be more creative in the world. So I think that's the end of this podcast. Just get out there and do it, guys. Start the project, because you can always come back and rewrite it. You can come back and redo it. You can come back and edit. Nothing has to be final, right? Even when a movie shoots, there still changes during the shooting. When a comedian gets on stage, sometimes in the moment they come up with another tagline and they do it, right? All these things happen. There's no such thing as final. It's not final until you say it's final and you're done with it and you don't go back to it. Then it's final. Otherwise, write and rewrite, work it, and just do it. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Clean Comedy Podcast. Luke, where can people find you at?
You can find me at LukeLacoy on everywhere. Just Google it.
All right. You can go to JamesDCreviston.com. There's a lot of stuff on there. Or you can go to comedypreneur.com, where there's tons of blog posts. Thanks to Luke for helping me out with that. He's been helping me get the blog posts up there. I've been busy on other projects. I have a backlog of like 50 blog posts or something, right? Yeah. And so he's helping me get those up and get them going. So check out Comedypreneur. So if you go there, there'll be new stuff. We're trying to drop 2 to 3 every week now to make sure that they're up. And I'm going to have more coming. But yeah, I appreciate all that help, Luke. I do. And if you want me to write anything for you, or go over something for you, or punch it up, check me out on Fiverr at JamesDCreviston. You can go there, and we'll put that in the link in the show notes as well. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow, and if you want to, leave a comment. And don't forget to comment on what this background is. So if you're watching on YouTube, please comment what this background is. If you know what it is, leave it in the comments. All right, thank you guys so much. Have a great one. Bye.
See, clean up in here. So clean your mouth out with a bar of soap and get ready for the clean.